first episode of Chuck Talks, or Talk with Chuck, up here on the big screen. And I've got with me today the mayor of Northport, Florida, Debbie McDowell. She's also running for re-election for her seat on City Commission. And I'm glad that she is here with us today. And off screen, to keep her and both me in place, is her husband sitting over here. And he did the right thing, and he's sitting on the back side of the camera.
And I think you referred to him as Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, there's always got to be.
He's never been referred to that before.
Well, I like to break new ground.
There you go.
Glad you're here with us today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you for doing this. This is very kind of you.
Yeah. I need to be a little more involved in local politics than what I have been.
There you go.
And I kind of, I'm in ministry, so you play the balance. You know, you got the ministry part of it, and you got the political part of it. And I'm real staunch on, I don't get in the pulpit and preach politics. I don't mix it from that point of view, but I like being involved in it, So you kind of play the balance.
Right.
So I'm trying to get involved a little bit more. And it's an interesting political season. You're up for election. You can't go door knocking.
Can't go door knocking.
Thank you, COVID-19.
Yeah, COVID-19 has really put a hampering on campaigning efforts. You used to have town hall meetings where you would get together with friends and come to their house, and they'd invite 10 friends, and you'd sit there and talk, answer questions and stuff. That's not happening. I used to hold town hall meetings and have, go to like HOAs or community civic groups. That's not happening. I used to host my own town halls. I planned on doing another Northport Government and You series in the spring. Well, that didn't happen. I was hoping to do it again in the summer. That didn't happen. So now I'm hoping to be able to do it again in the fall, and that's a big fat question mark.
Yep.
So it's really a challenge. And then on top of it, I also have the responsibilities of being an elected leader.
Yeah.
So, it's very interesting these times.
You don't, you get in these positions, you don't get the option to not show up.
That's correct.
And you're there, and that's how it goes. I know, with what I do personally, I kind of got caught in a catch-22. What we do small, and from some aspects, the bank said you qualify for PPP, but the part of where my personal income comes from went away because all my speaking engagements were canceled from March to September, October, and nobody's scheduled anything back yet.
That's right.
So all of that speaking engagements gone, everything like that's done. But then on the other hand, some of our giving toward our missions outreaches went up because people were seeing the need that was taking place overseas, and they were like, hey, we want to give you. So I kind of got caught in this thing, whether you're there or not. I mean, it's just a strange thing that's happening to us this year.
It sure is.
Yeah.
It sure is. And COVID-19 has made campaign at the local, the county, the state, even federal levels very difficult. You can't do what has been considered normal campaign tactics and ways of doing it. So now I have to rely on technology, and I am definitely not the guru when it comes to technology. So when you offered to do this, I was all excited because, this will be some way to get the word out and explain where I stand as far as some of the things that have happened and things I want to look forward to in the future. So
good. Well,
thank you for doing
help.
this.
Yeah, and I've extended this offer just so everybody knows it's watching. I'll be putting links up for this for local pages here on Facebook, but I've extended to other people running for other offices as well. And I don't care, I know there's one that's, I've not been real happy with, and I've expressed that on social media before, and but I've told them, I said, hey, come talk to me. I'll treat you fair. And, that's what it's about. I'm like, politics, part of it's an art of persuading people to your side, So anyhow, that's where we're at. I got some questions for you.
Sounds good. Let's go for it.
And,
hopefully I have good answers.
And I like, you have a lid on your cup, so I don't have to worry about something getting thrown at me or anything.
Nope, I won't.
I got 7 things that I wrote down, 7 kind of general topics, and we can see where it takes us.
Sounds great.
I know you've been hot and heavy in the middle of budget talks.
Yes.
For the last month or so, and it's budget season, and I don't think the average person grabs a hold of. Americans as a whole, we do horrible at household budgets.
Yes.
and let alone trying to come up with how big is the city budget? How many hundreds of million are we at in Northport?
It's a $178 million budget book. The budget book is approximately, when you add it all together, about 700, maybe 1,000 pages. I went through probably 80% of it. Line by line, page by page, description by description, dollar amount by dollar amount, because that, to me, the budget is the most important thing that we have to do as elected officials, is approve the budget. City manager prepares the budget based on what we tell him to do in March of each year. It's called the assumptions meeting. And we make specific assumptions. And assumptions are always wrong. We know what happens when you assume.
Yep.
Assumptions assume, same thing, it's always wrong. Well, this assumptions meeting was pre-COVID. Then COVID hit and changed everything in my mind as the budget. People are losing their jobs, people are losing hours, parents are having to coordinate educating their kids at home and balancing a job working from home. So those are all new things that they're learning. The budget book, to me, while we did say stick with the millage rate of last year's millage rate, we also said, or make it lower. Now, my goal is to make it lower.
Yes.
And so I was looking for ways to make it lower. I found quite a few things to help make it lower. Is it low enough? Not in my book. It always can go down more, especially after last year's tax increase. I did vote against it. I voted against it for all the same reasons that I voted against other budgets, because we have to cut waste. We have to cut spending. There's things in there, to me, are wasteful. Staff obviously says they need it, so you have this kind of battle of the wills. And then ultimately it's a decision of 5 people. Takes 3 to make it win, or takes 3 to make it lose.
Right.
And that's okay, that's how it works. Majority wins. And so I did find some things in this year's budget, a huge error in calculating commission salaries. So that saved us about $25,000. And I know when you're looking at a budget of $170 or $178 million, $25,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but it still helps.
Oh, yeah.
Found where they had some charges for brand new equipment to be maintained. And I said, well, wait a minute, we're maintaining them for 3 years in this budget. Why? It's under warranty. What could possibly go wrong in 3 months that we would have to have $21,000 in fleet repairs? Well, that got cut. So right now we're up to almost $50,000. Salaries is a concern of mine. We have union contracts that we have to fulfill obligations salary-wise. We have general employees who don't have the benefits of unions. Basically, all of them get a cost of living increase up to 1.5%, and then an evaluation increase. And this I absolutely agreed on before COVID.
Yeah.
And I agree we have to pay our employees good salaries. We have to, but it's the whole benefit package. It's not just salaries, it's the whole benefit package. And this is something I've been saying for 3 years. Well, you can't just focus on salaries or just focus on benefits. You have to look at the whole pie.
Yeah.
So ultimately, while everybody agreed with my sentiment as to why we need to cut those salary increases, it didn't fly. So I'm not happy about it, because perception is reality. You've got citizens out there that are saying, I lost my job because of stupid COVID, and you're giving salary increases to people that work for the city that, up to a 5.5% increase. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot online. I don't know how much, social media can either be a good thing or a bad thing. And sometimes all at the same time. I don't know how much you read it or look at it, I mean, it's tough. I mean, there's just days I don't even look at it at all, But I have seen that a lot in some of the area pages of people talking about some of the pay increases. My wife is a nurse, you know, in the middle of all this, and when it started, they all got hit with a nice big cut.
Yep.
And her work didn't get cut any. She worked as many hours as ever, you know. But I mean, it's tough, and I understand where you're coming from. I'm the ultimate small government guy, so I appreciate you trying to hold the line on this is where we're at. We don't need to get any bigger, and so forth. And I really do appreciate that from your standpoint.
One of the other things that I am constantly harping on is vehicles. Replacing vehicles so prematurely. One of the first things I did when I first got elected, and we were talking about replacing dump trucks. There were, I think, 2 or 3 dump trucks that the staff wanted to replace. So I did some research, you know, well, what's wrong with them? How many miles on it? Is it a diesel dump truck? Is it tandem axle? So I'm asking all these questions, and I finally looked at staff and I said, what's wrong with them that they need to be replaced? Well, Commissioner, it's met its end of useful life. And I said, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm so new, you know, what does that phrase mean, end of useful life? And they said, well, we estimate the life of the dump truck to be 7 years. I said, 7 years? It's still brand new.
Yeah.
So ultimately I said, no, you're not replacing them. There's nothing wrong with them.
Yep.
The one staffer said, well, it has dents and dings in it. And I remember sitting there going, dents and dings. I go, it's a dump truck. It's supposed to. And I remember my hands going up like that. And I'm like, oh gosh, you're on camera. You're on television. This is recorded for posterity. So
well,
it was funny.
Know, I travel a lot to Haiti. But if they could see some of the dump trucks that I see down in Haiti.
Oh, I'm sure held together with bubble gum and rope.
Yeah, I'm like, whew. It's a trip. So I know you've been dealing with all that. One issue that I know that's coming up, and I think you guys kind of got hit with it in the middle of all this budget stuff, is the upkeep of the parks and stuff is getting separated from the county. Mm-hmm. The county's withdrawing from their service contract or whatever, and you know, and I know this is probably also pretty new to you because my understanding is only happened in the last few weeks.
So we call it the transition. Okay, so Sarasota County is responsible for maintaining our field parks. Okay, the soccer fields, the football fields, the baseball fields, the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park, because that's a real specialty with the trails and stuff. They're in charge of maintaining the Marina Park, which is where we have our boat launch to go out to the Myakka River, out to wherever you want to go. And the county has been doing these maintenance of these fields, and I'll just call it the fields because it's easier, for probably 15 years or so. About a year or so ago, they said, okay, we're done. We're not going to be maintaining them anymore. And we all went, wait a minute, why? This is the agreement. We have this agreement in place until 21. Why are you going to stop doing it? And they said, okay, we'll continue to do it until 2021 when the agreement expires. And we were hoping to be able to reach some negotiations on it because everybody in Northport also pays taxes to Sarasota County.
Yes.
And we help their parks and rec. And the county is focusing on regional parks, which are 100 acres or more, and it has like a regional draw. So they're saying, no, we're not going to maintain the parks anymore. The fields anymore. So we have to prepare. We have to prepare for that. We have to hire staff for it. We have to get equipment for it. And that will take effect probably June or July of 2021. This will give us time to buy the equipment, because just because you want to buy equipment doesn't mean it'll come in a month. It takes a very long time to get equipment in. So we'll be ahead of the game and take over these field maintenances. But we still haven't had the talk with the county of, hey, can we renegotiate this agreement? Maybe do half. Maybe you do 3 of the parks and we'll do 3 of the parks. You know, just come up with something. But because of COVID, there hasn't been the discussion. Well, up on the dais, I reminded everybody, we do Zoom meetings. This has been going on probably since April. Could we do a Zoom meeting with the county? So we asked the city manager to send a letter to the county saying, hey, we'd like to have a Zoom meeting sometime between now and September, I think 7th or something like that. So that way then we could work on our budget and help, and for them to work on theirs. So we are still preparing for worst case scenario where we have to take these field maintenances over, and crossing our fingers that it doesn't happen until, you know, maybe next year or 5 years from now, or we come up with an agreement that we could all live with.
Okay. All right. One of the things that I've noticed, it just kind of popped out at me, the item of the county or the city commission, and I guess what their budget is and what it entails with them. Over the last 4 years, it was like just under $200,000, and now it's up to around $500,000. It seems like that particular area has gone up, and I think on what I read this week, you know, it's like, you know, another almost 10% increase or somewhere right on around that area. It seems like that particular thing revolving around the commission's just exploding.
So the commission's budget is our salaries, our retirement, health benefits. We also have in there our lobbyist who helps us up in Tallahassee. He is a very good asset to have. Helps us get things done up in Tallahassee, helps us through the lobbying efforts that happen at the state level. We do not have a federal lobbyist. We got rid of those many years ago. But we also had a charge in there, and this is what I found when I went through line by line, item by item, that there's a thing called Florida League of Cities Mayors, and it was like $5,000 or $6,000. And I said to my fellow commissioners, I said, I'm mayor. I said, I've gotten nothing out of this, nothing. And I turned to Commissioner Hanks and I said, Commissioner Hanks, when you were mayor last year, did you utilize anything from this Florida League of Cities Mayors Council or whatever it's called? And he says, no. And I said, guys, at this point, it's $5,000, $6,000. Let's cut it.
Yeah.
2 years, we haven't gotten anything out of it. Let's cut it. So we did. I found the error with them calculating the salaries, so that saved another $25,000. We cut some other charges that were in there, probably about another $5,000. So we've cut a lot of stuff out of that budget already. Now, a lot of people say, well, your retirement, you can cut your retirement contributions, and I always respond, no, we cannot. That is done by Florida state statute. The statute requires X percentage of our salary be contributed to our retirement. That we have no say on. We have to do it. Whether we like it or not, we have to do it. So, and it goes also with our management and employees. There's X amount of percentage that has to be contributed. And then individually, I have to contribute 3% to my FRS retirement too. But that's on me.
Right.
But the city is responsible for putting in another percentage into our retirement.
Yeah, you know, some of those things, you know, that I think a lot of times the public reads them, you know, and it's just like, oh, that's outrageous, you know. I think that everybody would agree that if you want quality people running things, you got to pay on scale with it, and you know, whether we'd like to admit that or not, and you know, it's something that we have to learn that's what we got to do.
But does quality pay equal a quality candidate or a quality elected official? I would tend to disagree with you.
Okay.
Only because of the amount of money you make. If you made $100,000 a year, does that mean that your dedication level increases? No, not necessarily. All I got to do is look at what's going on in DC. I firmly believe your elected official is who matches your core values. I take my job as a commissioner very seriously. There is no set rules and requirements for me to have to follow. There's no, you will do this, you will do that, you will do this. And that's what is so amazing. We have 5 distinctly different commissioners up on that dais. Whether we agree with each other's core values or not, we do respect each other up there. Each one of us has a unique way of being able to be an asset to the commission. I get in the weeds, I get into the details. I check the minutes and make changes to the minutes. Does everybody do that? I don't know. Does everybody answer their emails? I don't know. Does everybody respond to citizens' concerns? I don't know. I am accountable to me. I have to do the very best job that I possibly can do for the citizens of Northport. If you had a job description and paid somebody $100,000 a year, does that guarantee you somebody to do the job? Because at the end of the day, once you're elected, they don't have to do anything. They can get recalled, and that whole process is very long and detrimental to the city. But at the end of the day, they're responsible for the job, and they're responsible to the voters that voted them in. So I don't know if a job description and paying them $100,000 a year is the answer. I really don't, because we are supposed to be representing the people, and just because I don't have a college degree doesn't mean I'm not representing the people.
I'll give you that. You didn't say anything I'm going to argue with you about. I think that there's a lot, you brought up looking at what's happening on our national level. I think there's a huge disconnect.
Absolutely.
On our national level, and it just, I don't know. I promised myself I wasn't going to go national politics.
Yeah, we're not going to national. We don't have enough time for that.
Yeah, we don't have enough time for that one.
Or desire at that point. So we'll move on.
All right, another local hot topic. I know you'll love this one.
Go for it.
The water park.
The pool. I knew it was coming.
Yeah, you knew it was going to come up there. What do we do? A $600,000 a year deficit. How are we going to cope with this long term?
Okay. So let's back up to the beginning. We had a pool. It's called Dallas White Pool. It was run by the YMCA. Mm-hmm. That pool was held together with a wing and a prayer. Okay, that's the only thing that was keeping it together. The Department of Health knew we were in the process of building a new pool, so I don't want to say they let things slide, because that gives a very misunderstanding. But they let us fix things knowing that we were going to be opening this new pool. Now, I did vote for the new pool. I voted for the aquatic center because I knew that the Northport Dallas White Pool was shutting down. And the city of Northport, the largest city in the county, the youngest city in the county, would not have a pool in its city limits. The closest one would be Inglewood, which is Charlotte County, or you would have to go up into Sarasota or Venice, all right? And I don't even think Venice has a pool. I don't know. So then the other thing is you hear constantly, there's nothing for the young families to do in Northport. Yeah. There's nothing to do in Northport. There's nothing to do in Northport. If I could count how many emails I've gotten or Facebook posts about that, yep. I would be very rich for even $1 a post, okay?
You would.
How I knew that this pool would be an asset to the city. I knew that this pool would be something that the city needs and our young families would use on a regular basis. I also knew that it would bring people from outside the area because of the water amenities that we would have with the lazy river and the slides, the diving boards, all that kind of stuff. I was not happy with the amount of money that it was going to cost to run it. But then I did my due diligence and realized that all of the other parks that are in the city of Northport, all other 26 of them, also cost the city. And if you add those all up, it far exceeds the $600,000 for a pool. I knew that this pool would be used by our high school and our middle school. It would teach our young kids how to swim. It would be for the diving teams. We have the water polo teams there. It would help people learn how to become lifeguards. The lazy river, it's an amenity. And I don't have to show you how long people sit and wait in line to get into the water park. And if I could take COVID-19 away, I think our water park would be a huge asset financially to the city, But because of COVID-19 and because of CDC guidelines, and because we opened so late last year, because they were still under construction and we had problems with construction, we had problems with the contractor, that it delayed the opening of that pool. It was supposed to open at the beginning of the summer and it didn't open until the end of the summer. So we had to scramble to let people at least use it before we shut it down for the winter, because the aquatics part is not heated. And we did that for a reason, because we didn't want it heated, because the kids, the people that we had this pool built for, are in school.
Right.
Well, they're supposed to be in school.
Yeah.
But because of COVID, who knows about school? So COVID has really put a big damper on everything. The lazy river has to have so many lifeguards because of the Red Cross requirements.
Yes.
So hopefully that kind of explains a little bit more about the pool and where I was coming from when I voted for it. I still believe in my heart that yes, it's not going to lose 600,000. I don't think. I think it's going to be an amenity just like the baseball fields. The amount of money that we get in from our fields is nothing compared to the cost of maintaining those fields. And all that documentation's out there right now. If anybody wants to see all that, I can show it to them. I mean, we're going to be spending $1.2 million to maintain fields for the softball, soccer, baseball, football, but we're only going to get 60,000 in revenues. So where's that outcry?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a balance, you know. And
I get you.
we are a very young city, and I just, in my heart, could not have no pool here in the city.
Okay. That's the best explanation I've gotten from anybody yet. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. All right. A question in the job markets and so forth. One of the things I've been in Northport since the summer of 2011.
Wow.
So
you're considered an old timer.
That's what I've been told. Although there's people on my street that have been here a lot longer than that. So
we've been here about 30 years.
Yeah. So you know, and this is the only place I've lived since I've been here. But I've always kind of took note that we manufacturing type jobs. You know, we just very little here in Northport. A lot of service industry, retail, restaurant, that type of thing. But you know, some doctors' offices, things of that nature. But you know, what a lot of people, I've described this place to my dad as a bedroom community. A lot of people drive to Sarasota or they drive to Fort Myers. It's kind of a cross in between, and you know, equal distance to them, and they drive there to work. It's like you live here, but you work somewhere else.
Yep.
Having said that, has anybody since Tervis Tumbler said we're going to move out of Venice, but we want to stay on this coast of Florida somewhere, has anybody been to Tervis and talked to them?
So that is something that I am 95% confident our economic development team has already done. Whether it be the Northport Economic Development Division or even the Sarasota County EDC Corporation may have approached them and said, hey, you know, what about Northport? I think this is something that we need to look at, but collectively we commission, yes, but more we collectively, the department of EDC needs to look at that and do what they do best. We're legislators.
Right.
Okay. And I know it's all about building those relationships with Tervis Tumbler's CEO and showing them around Northport. And I would love to do that, but I also don't want to step on their toes because we have an EDC department. We approved a new development out at Toledo Blade and Cranberry for industrial manufacturing. They broke ground, well, they cleared. I don't know if they've actually broke ground to start building. Yeah. But that is supposed to be starting and being concluded probably 22. It's a Benderson project, and we have to also remember that Northport is really unique to our surrounding communities. We're a pre-platted community, and we have the woes of our ancestors of general development when they saw the vision of Northport. It was a $10 down, $10 a month for 10 years, and you can own a piece of paradise. And that piece of paradise was a 1/4-acre lot.
Yeah.
And that's why everything is all pre-platted. And they didn't think about hey, we need to have a place for manufacturing or industrial or for storefronts or commercial or anything like that. Because that wasn't what, it was supposed to be a retirement community, snowbird community 60 years ago.
Right.
You got to go back into time 60 years ago. What was Northport? And apply it to what their vision was, and it was come down in the winter, go home in the spring. So you didn't have a need for commercial like you see today, because the people then moved to Northport and stayed. And then it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and more people come in. So we have more pre-platted lots than we do commercial lots. We have more pre-platted lots than we do for industrial, for jobs to stay here in Northport. We have these areas like Bobcat Trail, Lakeside Plantation, the West Villages, Cedar Grove, Heron Creek. Those are new developments that weren't pre-platted. So now they're able to add more commercial to those lots. That's the whole reason, one of the main reasons West Villages was annexed into the city of Northport, was because we saw the developer approached us and said, hey, we want to come here, but we need your water. We said, yeah, we'll supply you the water. Here's what we are looking at. And we worked together to make it these beautiful little communities, the villages, various villages.
Yep.
And we also have commercial in there. We also have some industrial in there. We have parks in there. So we looked at West Villages area as a way to have commercial base. So it's one of the growing pains that a lot of people that come from somewhere else don't understand, because they don't understand the history. They see the vacant property that's all out there and they go, well, the city owns all that vacant property. Why can't they put up whatever? And it's like, no, we don't own it. Somebody else owns it. It's privately owned, and it's zoned for a home. It's not zoned to put up manufacturing.
Yeah.
So
I grew up in a community that our biggest employer when I was a kid, my mother actually worked for one of the, she was a secretary to there was 2 brothers, they were co-presidents, and she was one of their secretaries. And union said, we're going to go on strike, and if you don't do meet our demands, and the guy says, you go on strike, we're packing up and we're moving. Mm-hmm. And they went on strike, and sure enough, they packed up and moved, So, we had a big university there, and it kind of kept us afloat for a few years. But it was a unique thing that I remember as a kid, junior high school age. Our mayor and his brothers owned some bars, and I'm not sure how much of a mayor he really was, although he was mayor for a long time. But I remember seeing a lot of pictures of him in the newspaper courting big businesses and stuff, and they were standing in a bar somewhere. And, and I didn't really care much for the guy a lot, even as I got older, and found out, how he was or whatever. But we recovered from that. He attracted other businesses. They came in and moved into that vacant property, and he brought in other big corporations as well, and the town has never looked back. And, it was just kind of his attitude on bringing jobs in, just kind of doing what he's got to do. But I know that, Northport and a lot of Florida, I don't think a lot of people in Florida ever expected Florida to become what it has.
you can thank air conditioning.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Probably.
Seriously.
I saw an old film of Walt Disney in the NBC headquarters. I think it was 1950. And he's at NBC in New York, and the head of Coca-Cola's there, the head of NBC, the head of General Electric, and he's pitching Disneyland to them. Mm-hmm. And he's got this aerial footage of all these orange groves, and he's talking about someday there's going to be this thing called a freeway. And the head of NBC laughed at him on film. And Disney's like, I'm going to show you. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And sure.
Talk about a visionary, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I just don't think people expected what has happened here to happen.
Well, Chuck, the other thing is people come from somewhere else, okay? And that somewhere else is usually very well developed. It's a very old area.
Yes.
I come from Chicago. Chicago, when it was only 60 years old, is not the Chicago we see today.
Yes.
And Northport, I've had the benefit of living here for 30 years. This is my home. And 30 years ago, Northport today is not even what it was 30 years ago. I mean, it's going to continue to evolve, and it's going to continue to grow, and it's growing up. And it's really, if you think about it this way, we're all part of the city of Northport growing up. It's kind of like it's a teenager. It's having its growing pains. It's trying to find its way. It's trying to fit in, and trying to be a big kid in a. It's really difficult to explain, but you come from Chicago, or you come from LA, or you come from New York or Detroit. Those cities are so well established that you can't think of how it would have been when it was only 60 years old. And that is one of the things that I constantly am trying to explain to people is think back to where you are from, what it was like when it was only 60 years old.
Yeah, it'd be a whole lot different than what
exactly,
people think.
Even 30 years.
Yep.
It's changed so much in 30 years. Between stoplights and businesses. I mean, shoot, 30 years ago, we didn't even have McDonald's.
In the last 10 years, how much has changed as society?
Exactly.
There. Home Depot and the Walmart was up here and stuff, but that was pretty much all that was there. A lot of that was, the whole Cocoa Plum was all under construction when I moved here.
When I was here, we didn't even have the, it used to be the Food Line at Sumter and 41 that is now a vacant building right there at Wendy's.
Okay.
That used to be an old Food Line.
Oh, okay.
So, and that went under when Food Line went under, but, that was like the end of town right there.
Wow, a town in Florida without a Publix, how does that happen?
Yeah, Publix was across the street, Food Line was on the other side, so, but so development, and this is a lot of stuff that I taught in my Northport Government and U class when I held that series, was about how government works here in Northport, how budgeting works, and how development works, because a lot of people don't understand it. So, great question so far.
Well,
Keep 'em coming.
Here's a hot one.
Go for it.
You mentioned the name of it a while ago, but
West Villages?
The West Villages, Welland Park, as I wrote on my note right here, fiasco. I mean, what is going? Now you can correct me on my numbers because I tried to find out things as best I could, but we have somewhere around $22-24 million invested out there, somewhere like that, over the years from Northport. And just here all of a sudden they decided they want to be, I know the official line is they want to be unincorporated Sarasota County. I'm not buying that. I think that they want to be their own city and do their own thing, but it's like they took a handout to do it, and hey, here now we are, boom, we're gone. It's a sore spot and a touchy issue.
It's going to tear this city apart. It is going to tear this city apart. West Villages area. I don't like calling it the West Villages. It is in the city of Northport. It is our city community. Just like Bobcat Trail is in the city of Northport and part of our city. It is a community in Northport. So the area known as the West Villages, which is Grand Paradiso, Island Walk, Renaissance, Oasis, Preserve. Those are the 5 villages that are in West Villages Improvement District. They pay CDD taxes to West Villages Improvement District for their roads, for their infrastructure, for their needs. It goes back to what I had said earlier. The developer, way before Mattamy Homes, way before West Villages Improvement District, had the vision to build out there. And they needed water because Florida state statute says you cannot have a development without city water, city sewer. Unless you're pre-platted, which is why the rest of Northport is able to use septic and well.
Gotcha.
Because we're pre-platted before, so we were grandfathered in. All right, so this new area of the West Villages needed the water. So that they went to various other entities, and they all said no. Northport said, we'll work with you. Let's figure out what this is going to look like. Well, then in 2000, and it happened. We started running water lines out there. They started building out there. Grand Paradiso was one of the first ones. Island Walk was right around that same time. So who came first, which one, it doesn't matter at the same time. Then in 2008, the economy tanked. And everything dried up. And then a new developer came in and says, hey, we'll take over. And that's what they did. We'll take over. So they're working with the city of Northport because that's who their municipal entity is, and continued building and continued growing and to what you see today. And goes back to, this is what you see today, but 30 years ago it was nothing but cow pasture. 10 years ago it doesn't even look like what it does now. 20 years ago, same thing. 10 years from now, it's not going to look the same. So we have a group of citizens that were extremely upset about the tax increase of last September. Extremely upset. And I understand why they're upset. I voted against the tax increase because it was too much. It was way too much all at one time. It was a millage rate increase, assessments to road and drainage, to solid waste, to fire, water assessments increased, water charges increased. It was too much all at one time. It was crazy. No, don't do this. A little at a time is okay, but all at once, no. So that's why I voted against it. Well, the citizens were furious because it passed. And they started a citizens initiative. Kudos to them. Props to them. They took something that's available to them to affect change. They went out, got the petitions, they did everything that was required of them and brought forth a ordinance saying, hey, we want to de-annex these 5 villages from the city of Northport. Well, those 5 villages, it also includes the Brave Stadium. It also includes all of the commercial businesses that we wanted in our city. Mm-hmm. So where my huge props and kudos start and stop is right there with Citizen Initiative. Because now that they want to de-annex from the city, and it's called contraction, they have to follow a very strict and stringent process by the state statute. We have to do it, we, meaning the taxpayers, have to pay for a feasibility study, which has to be done in 6 months. We, the taxpayers of the city of Northport, have to hire outside counsel to help us navigate this legal mess. We have to verify the signatures on that petition that they had signed. This is all at expense of the entire city of Northport. And it's a handful of citizens that started this and this initiative, and then many others signed on the dotted line. But now I'm getting emails from people saying, I didn't understand what I signed. I thought it was going to save me money. I didn't know what it really and truly meant. One said that the document that they gave us said that the main reason that they want to de-annex from the city of Northport is because they pay taxes to the county, they pay taxes to the city of Northport, they pay taxes to the CDD, West Villages Improvement District, they pay HOA fees, and it's too much. Okay, if it's too much, I have to ask then, wouldn't it be more prudent for you and your financial situation to move?
Yeah.
I don't want to suggest anybody moving out of our city because I love our city. But at the same token, I recognize at some point I may move out of Northport. When we retire, I may not be able to afford it. But that is a decision that my husband and I will make. I will not sit there and go, hey, city of Northport, I want you to do and de-annex. No, that's not how it truly works. Not to mention, this is a section of the city that has assets that the city owns in it. It pains me that these citizens want to remove themselves from our city, knowing that when they bought their home, it is in Northport. They knew they lived in a city. They knew they had their CDD taxes. We don't get those.
Yeah.
That's the CDD gets those. They had to pay HOA fees. They knew all of this.
Yeah, it's not a surprise.
I had to pay the huge tax increase that I voted against.
Yep.
So did you. Everybody had to pay it.
Yep.
So it's going to be very, very unsettling for these next few months while we figure out what we have to do to state statutes and how that's all going to play out in the end once we get all the documents back. But it is going to tear our city apart. It's very sad and it's very unfortunate.
Okay.
And hopefully it can be repaired.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
I mean, you know, what they pay, I read the, you know, we pay this tax, that taxes, that. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody if you pay attention, you know, when you're buying your home. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And
it's your biggest asset
Yeah.
that you're buying. And unfortunately, there were a lot of unscrupulous realtors that weren't forthright and honest. Shame on them.
Yeah.
Shame on them.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, the people that bought their homes, they signed on that dotted line.
Okay. So we covered that one.
That was a big one.
That was a big one. It went easy, didn't it? Yeah, it's a beautiful area, and they're doing a great job.
It is a beautiful.
I've had the opportunity to be out there several times in the last couple of
Have
weeks.
you been out there in the past couple of weeks and saw that big area that's all been cleared so that they can make the huge lake that they're going to have out there?
Oh, is that what?
Yeah, it's going to be a huge lake with a huge downtown area, and it's going to be open not just for the people of the West Villages, but the entire city of Northport and the region that can come and go in there. So
Yeah.
it's going to be really cool. And this is what was part of this vision. So.
I can throw in one of my personal pet peeves if you want, real quick.
Sure, go ahead. What's your pet peeve?
Why in the world do we give the Atlanta Braves anything? We're worth $1.7 billion. I have a, because of my ideas on small government and stuff, I just, why do we, if they can pay somebody $23 million a year to throw a ball around, they can pay for their own stinking stadium. And I feel that way for absolutely every sports franchise on every level. Just pay for it yourself.
So the Braves Stadium is in the city of Northport.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of COVID, the Braves Stadium has not been able to do what it's supposed
there,
to be
yeah.
doing, and it's most unfortunate. The Braves Stadium, we, the city of Northport, and the taxpayers contributed $4.7 million to the stadium to help build it. I voted against it for one reason. 30 years we are not collecting any property taxes on that building because it's a Sarasota County asset. After 30 years it gets converted back to, I think, the developer. I'd have to go back and check the contract. We will get surtax money. Surtax money is sales tax money. We'll get a small percentage of that percentage. 4.7 million, maybe. I don't know. I love that they're here. As the one up on the dais that absolutely loves baseball, that was a really hard no vote for me because
Sure.
I love baseball and I know how much it's going to help our community. But I was here when the Texas Rangers were down in Charlotte Stadium. It was called Ranger Stadium at that time, and then they moved and went to, I think it was Arizona or somewhere. And it devastated Charlotte County.
Yeah.
And that concerned me that, you know, what will it do to Northport if?
Yeah. And it will, because, you know, here, especially recently, teams don't stay in spring training
Nope,
one spot very
not
long.
for 30
And
years.
I was on the other coast at Vero Beach when the Dodgers left. They'd been there since the 50s, you know. And, you know, I knew people personally. I knew one guy who was like, I'm like, where are you at today? I usually see you. And he's like, I'm sitting home crying. I'm like, why are you crying? He's like, I should be at opening day at
Yeah.
ball, you know. And I was like, I'm like, okay, man, you know.
So, yeah,
But,
well, we've
yep.
got the Fire Frogs coming in next year. Well, they were supposed to be here for this year, but because of COVID, again,
Minor
everything.
league?
Yeah, minor league team.
Okay.
So that'll be good. There's a lot of good things that the stadium is doing, and we cannot overshadow that. There is a lot of good things that the stadium is going to do for the city of Northport and for the region and the state. I mean, it is. There's no two ways about that. But I am with you. $4.7 million, in my opinion, wasn't a deal breaker for the whole complex, but it's one of those things.
It's just me. Let me give just one last thing here.
Sure.
We've been talking for quite a while.
I'm sorry. It's gone really fast.
Yeah, it has. I try to make it fun and exciting. And
It is.
What needs to be our number one priority in Northport? Do we need to be looking at bringing in jobs? I know a lot of people talk about particularly Price, the widening of Price Avenue, Street, whatever it is. They think that's a huge thing. Where do we, for the next 4 years, where do we need to throw our focus and say, hey, if we don't get a hold of this, we're in trouble?
Our infrastructure.
Infrastructure?
Yeah, and it's not just our road infrastructure, because we had our road bond, so our roads are pretty much taken care of, except for the expansion of Price. The Tropicare needs to be repaved. We're doing that with this year's budget. But we have our water control structures. They're 60 years old. They're starting to show their age. Hello.
Yeah.
I know exactly what showing age does at 60 years
I'm
old.
getting there too.
But no, in all seriousness, our bridges, our water control structures, our water and sewer facilities, lift stations, our infrastructure is really starting to show its age. And those are things that most people don't see.
You don't see it, so don't think about it.
You don't think about
Yep.
it. And when you say, hey, we got to replace this water control structure and it's going to cost millions of dollars, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
Well, if we don't fix it, it's going to flood the city. If we don't fix some bridges, well, it's going to cave in and hurt your car or somebody walking. So yes, our infrastructure, I would say, is number one. Number two, I would say, for me personally, is running water and sewer out to the interchanges at Toledo Blade and Sumter, to bring in that commercial development at those interchanges, instead of having people drive by, have them get off, stop, get their gas, get their
Right.
burrito, whatever it is that they're stopping for, here in Northport, so that those tax dollars stay in our county. And once those get developed, those developers pay the city back for that investment. A lot of people would say neighborhood water and sewer. I would agree, but then I also then say, wait a minute, that's a really hefty price tag for each individual property owner. It's upwards of $35,000
Ouch.
for sewer and water. I don't know about you. I don't have that kind of money sitting around, and if I did, it sure was not to put in city water and city sewer.
Nope.
I could have bought a home that had that stuff already. I like my well and septic.
We have city water here, but we have our septic, and I'm like, you can leave me my septic.
Yeah. So
I was a plumber long enough. I know how to take care of that.
Yeah.
You know.
So I think our infrastructure needs are the top priority.
I would love. I agree with some of what you said. That at Sumter and Toledo Blade, if I have family come to stay, I have some space here, but man, we don't.
We have our first hotel opening in
I
40
know it.
years.
I know it. You can't wait for
40
it.
years, our first hotel in our city limits. It's almost finished. I think COVID kind of put things behind the 8 ball for them, but I can't speak for them. It's supposed to be opening soon. It's right there behind Culver's, right there by Lowe's, and it's a Hampton Inn, so
Hampton
it's
Inn's
not
gonna be nice.
it's not like a little fly-by-night kind of place. So it's going to be nice for the citizens when they have family that come and stay.
Yeah, it's going to be nice, and we need a couple more to come in like that, and you got the new, I don't know if it's in the city or not, but the new 7-Eleven on River Road, right by the interstate, has gotten opened up, and we could get that at a couple other stops, and it'd be a big help to us.
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of people made fun of it, but the Waffle House that opened up there by City Hall and the fire department.
Yes.
And I saw online, people, Waffle House, we get nothing but a Waffle House. I'm like, the guy's a genius. I'm like, what fire guy is not going to walk over there at 2 a.m. and get himself something to eat?
But let's talk real quick, because I know we're running out of time.
Sure.
This was a company that invested in our city of
Yes.
Northport. They invested in our city. They called Northport home and put in a Waffle House. regardless of what anybody thinks about Waffle House, set that aside. We have a corporation that came in and called Northport home.
Right.
And how can anybody belittle that?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I think whoever the franchisee for it, I think they did a brilliant job, and my hat's off to them. Same with the one who threw the Taco Bell in next door to them. I think they put a brilliant location and did an excellent job, and actually it's about the nicest Waffle House I think I've ever been in.
Yeah, it's really.
So, yeah, it's.
I haven't been in it yet, but COVID kind of put the halt on them in their grand opening too.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. So. But yeah, we've been talking for almost an hour.
Can I give my website and stuff for my candidacy?
Sure. Throw it out there. Tell everybody where you're at.
Okay, so you can go to my website, which is www.mcdowell2020.com. And you can go on my commissioner Facebook page, which is Debbie McDowell, the Commissioner Debbie McDowell, and that shows everything that we've been doing in the city. I also have a candidate Facebook page, which is Elect McDowell 2020. And then always just send me an email and ask your questions. I'll answer them as best that I can. And hopefully this was beneficial for everybody and kind of laid out where we've been, what we've been doing, and we've got a lot more to do, and that's why I want to run for 4 more years.
I didn't want to do this at the beginning, but I'll close with this.
Go ahead.
When we had our neighborhood issue, which we briefly talked about before we started rolling the camera, I contacted every city commissioner multiple times. I got 2 that never responded at all. I never got an email, I never got a phone call. I actually went to the offices one day, they wouldn't even see me. I had 2 that called me and talked to me. One of them was very helpful, the other one not so much. I did not get a call from you. You showed up. I looked out the front door and you were standing in the street, taking pictures and taking a first-hand look.
Yep.
And you facilitated meeting with other people in the neighborhood and stuff. And everything I've heard about you and what I have personally seen, you're very proactive toward Northport. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Thank you for your time today and for the interview.
I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
And glad to meet you, Mr. Mayor.
That's my husband.
Yes.
My better half.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Hope you all
Jeff.
had a
Thank
good
you.
time today.
Well, I did.
All right. Here we go.